thank you all for the questions. What we're going to do now is kind of transition into just John, what's one main takeaway from hiring people? And then we'll talk about what's next after that.
So the main takeaway that I have, since we're now moving into an interview format. So the big takeaway that I got was I'm seeing a huge difference in people that applied. Like, I have a ton of people that say I'm a hard worker and I'm willing to learn. And that doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm sorry, that's kind of a blunt, horrible thing to say. It's a feel-good statement, and I get that. If you say it, that's one thing. But then I also got resumes from people that are actually community leaders. We actually hired 3 community leaders onto our security operations center that said, I'm a hard worker and I'm willing to learn. And then they backed it up. Specifically, what they would say is, I'm a hard worker, I'm willing to learn. I have gone through and I played the SANS holiday hack challenges. I have gone through Hack the Box and I'm at certain levels and I have certain awards. I have gone through the Antisyphon cyber range that we have at Black Hills Information Security, and I'm level 10 and I'm in 4th place. So you can say all day long that you're willing to learn and you're a hard worker. There's going to be someone else out there that's going to say that, and then they're taking advantage of all the different free resources that are available online for them to learn, and they're actually doing hard work. So if you're going to put something in your resume, if you're going to say something in an interview, don't ever say, I'm willing to learn, I'm a hard worker, unless you can back it up. Like, one of the people that I was talking to is like, he's working in North Carolina. He's a help desk technician. He's doing security in addition to that. He's wearing multiple hats. He's doing all of this stuff at his job. And then on top of that, at night, he's spending a tremendous amount of time on cyber ranges just trying to learn security. We had another person who we didn't hire, but I want to come back to him shortly. He's a chemical engineer by training. He does full-on chemical engineering as his day job, but he's doing tons of capture the flag events because this is what he loves to do. So these are people that are saying, I'm a hard worker, I'm willing to learn, and look at all the things that I've done that is incredible hard work that actually has some proof of what I've learned in the industry as well. So that's one of the huge takeaways. I didn't really care about specific certs like OSCP or SANS or anything. There was a ton of people that just had SANS certs that we totally didn't hire because they weren't actually like doing anything other than that, right? So yeah, if you're saying you're a hard worker and you're willing to learn, prove it. And there's plenty of options out there that don't cost anything for you to prove it as well. And by the way, we're not hiring anymore, just for the record. Just for the record. So before I start getting tons of resumes, we filled up all of our positions, but we may be looking for more SOC analysts in the future. Just remember, those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm looking for basically a good level of like coding and scripting. I'm looking for someone that's doing cyber challenges. I'm looking for someone that's got, like actual proof of them doing these things. Those are people that make great candidates.
Yeah. All right. So, John, feel free to jump in here, but I'm going to give like a real quick 10 to 15 minutes if you want to stick around. If not, if you're job hunting, if you know someone, jump on. So this is like when I do a 2-hour Twitch stream on Tuesday nights and Friday afternoons. And so far, 74 people have landed new jobs in the last year. So super happy about that. And the reason why I'm happy about that is because there's sometimes I have imposter syndrome and I'm like, oh God, I hope this works. People come back and then you're like, hey, I got a job. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. But one of the pieces of advice we give is how to build your resume. And so the main takeaway that I'm going to give you right now is this: job hunt first, then build your resume. Like job hunt first, then build your resume. Job hunt first, then build your resume. And the one thing that I'm going to show you, like this one technique, is that it is easier for human beings to sit down and find something that describes who we are than it is for us to sit down and describe who we are. And what I mean by that is that if you were to sit down at a blank sheet of paper right now, so I go to File, I go to New, and I have this, and if I asked you like, hey, tell me about yourself, like, I'm smart and I like know how to do stuff, I guess, and like I like security. Like this is hard for us to sit and like, well, what do I put? What do I say? What do I put here? I don't know. And so what I found, like I'd say month one of doing these job hunts on Twitch and helping people, and we were doing live job hunts, is that I was going through this, and one day I was like, oh, well, here, just do this. If you're looking for a SOC analyst position, then type in SOC analyst to LinkedIn and then click on jobs. And then what it's going to do is bring up all 2,418 jobs currently in the United States for SOC analyst. And you're like, oh, okay. And so at this point, you go click on SOC analyst. So you're not job hunting, you're harvesting. And the reason why we're harvesting is because it's hard for us to describe who we are. It's easier for us to find something that describes who we are. So you get over here to this, Sienna, SOC analyst, and you get down to this section where it says operations, and you're like, monitor, SIEM, EDR, and other security tools for detection and identification of security events. You're like, I know how to do that. Copy. Let's go back over here. SOC analyst. And then you go, paste. All right, got one. And you move on to the next one, like document security investigations, and you clear and sure do. And then you go back over and you drop that next one in. You just go. And what you're doing is you're building out just all your capabilities, skills, and everything else. Now, if it's something that you did and not something that you're doing, then make sure that when you add it to your list of skills and abilities, you put it in the proper text. So you want all of your bullet points about your skills and abilities to start with an action verb in the proper tense. So if you monitored SIEM, EDR, and other security tools for detection and identification of security events, then that's something you did. If you're currently doing it at a position, then it's monitor SIEM. If you documented, so you just want to make sure everything is nice and clean. And if this is bothering you as much as it's bothering me, that they're not aligned, then let's just go ahead and fix that. When you're doing this, I'm just going to bring up a point. Do you put a period at the end or not a period at the end? And so, John, what do you think? Period at the end or not a period at the end? I'll let people in the Discord.
For the vast majority of what I do not put a period at the end. Unless I'm actually referencing a quote or something of that nature, then I would put a period at the end. But that's what I do for PowerPoint slides. But for me as a hirer, I wouldn't hold it against anybody if they did it either way.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up is because at some point you're going to find some that have periods at the end and some that don't. And if you're a person who ever puts attention to detail on your resume, you don't want period, not period, period, not period.
Yeah, consistency. The right answer is consistency then, right?
Yes. So we click on the SOC analyst. So let's say we grabbed a few over here and we're like, drive network security monitoring and incident response for a global enterprise network. You're like, not a bad idea. That is something I know how to do. So once again, you drop that in and now it becomes something that you've done. And so if you need to say drove network security monitoring and incident response for a global. So this just helps you figure out what to put on your resume. It's not like you're not padding, you're not doing, this is your own internal document of like, hey, I know how to do this, 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 I know how to do all these things. Now, I have done this before, and I want to show you what the turkey looks like once it's been cooked. And if you don't get that reference, it goes back to old cooking shows where they would say, okay, everybody, we're going to make a turkey today. And then they pull it out of the oven and show you what it looks like. So this is me spending 2 hours, and I do recommend you spend 2 hours. You set a timer, you set 2 hours, and then you job hunt your current job title, the job title that you want, and any job title you've had in the past. This includes, did you work in the restaurant industry? Did you work at a help desk? Did you work here? Because if you go to the help desk one, if I type in the word help desk up here, and then all of a sudden you find help desk, there are now 22,152 positions for help desk. And if you click on help desk analyst, let's skip past this and it goes down to this part down here where it says things like acting as technical representative for an IT office. You're like, I never thought to describe myself as acting as a technical reference for an IT office. Coordinated with IT support to provide personnel key services. So here's the reason why this is important. Because you and I, we fall into one of two categories when it comes to building a resume. We either think of only the awesome thing that we did, and we like scour our brain. We're like, okay, so I got this award this one time. I did a thing that was really special that everyone patted me on the back for. So I'm going to put that on there. Or you're the other kind of person that says, I just showed up and did my job. Nothing special. I just did my job. And so if I was to put anything on my resume, it's just what I did. So there's nothing special. So why would I even put anything? And you either fall into one of those two categories or you're somewhere in the middle where you're like, So if you do this for 2 hours, and you hunt and you find all these different things that can describe who you are, what you end up with is this turkey. This is my going through for just 2 hours and finding all the things that I know how to do. It's written differently. So if you find the same thing, but it's written differently, then grab them. Like it's, that's a little different and that's worded differently. Thank you, HR person who worded that one differently than the other one that I found. And so you scroll through here.
We got a question. PR Clear Sky said, well, how would you do this hunt process for somebody that's just graduating from school?
Okay, so I love the people who talk about graduating from school because all of your classes, and this goes for John's class too. So if you've taken a class, they always talk about what students will learn or what students will know or what students will, there's that section of what students will accomplish, what will be covered in the course. This includes certifications too. This also goes for hack the box and try to hack me and things like that. Well, they'll say in this module or in this, you're going to cover these 3 things. Now, when it comes to that, I'm going to give you the most, we're going to transition to that. There are 3 levels of knowledge. And so you'll see this on resumes from time to time. And what happens is that we as human beings, we get over here and we assume that they're always looking for experts. You're like all these things here, like you have to be an expert. And they always say like superb oral and written communication skills. And you're like, oh man, excellent written. They said it twice. They actually said it twice. I love it. So I'm going to tell you about the 3 levels of knowledge. So 3 levels of knowledge. So that way it can help kill your imposter syndrome in case you have it, or if you're graduating from college, it will kill this too. The first level of knowledge is knowledge of. You're going to see this in job posts from time to time. It says knowledge of. And here's what knowledge of means. I've heard of it. What really is what it means. Like if someone was to tell you and ask you about Kali Links, you're like, I've heard of that. Or if they ask you about ARP cache poisoning, see you, John. If they ask you about ARP cache poisoning, you're like, I heard about that too in a webcast from Black Ghost. And so you have this, I've heard of it. So that's knowledge of. It can also be familiar with. And so those of you who are graduating from college, and if this is the case for you, then you can say, I have knowledge of Windows. I have knowledge of Linux. I have knowledge of offensive security. I have knowledge of Kali Linux. I have knowledge of these things. And so that can help you understand that when they're looking for someone who has proficient with or who has an expert in, then you can just say, well, I have knowledge in those things and correct it and have it be right for you. The second level of knowledge is proficient in, and this means I use it on a daily basis. If you want to know if you're proficient with something, then it's I know where the hotkeys are, I know the shortcut keys, like I use it on a daily basis. And so anything that you use on a daily basis, you can say I'm proficient in this, I'm proficient in this tool, I'm proficient in TCP/IP protocols, I'm proficient in this, I'm proficient in those things. And so that's a lot of, I can say it. And then finally, it's an expert in, and the definition of this is I know it so well, I could teach it. So this is, I know it so well, I could teach it. Not that I know it so well, I could teach it well to someone, because teaching is different skill than the thing is that you know, but I know it so well that I could teach it to someone else. And someone said, do people use cover letters anymore? And if you want to hear my rant about cover letters, and show up for my Twitch stream, because I normally go on a 10 to 15 minute rant on cover letters, but I'm not going to now. So to get back to this, let's say we're doing a search for SOC analyst, and I'm going to wrap up here in just a second because this is just a real quick primer. And we go over here to SOC analyst here at DICE, and we get to DICE, and well, those weren't any bullet points, so I'm going to skip down here to this one at Accenture. And so down here it says things like minimum of 1 year experience monitoring and responding to intrusions. So if you go back over here to your document and you drop this in, then you can just change this to 2 years of experience monitoring and responding to intrusion attempts, or 1 year, or less than 1 year, or greater than 1 year. You know, that's whatever that is for you. So when you're hunting and you're harvesting, then what you want to do is say, I know this. Now check this out. It says bonus points if you have. Well, okay, let's talk about bonus points. So I could go over here and say knowledge of, and then I could drop this down and I could say networking And let's say I'm really good at Cisco, so I could cut this one out and say I have knowledge of Palo Alto, but then I could go over here and say proficient in. And that's where this proficient in knowledge of comes from when you need to classify your skills and abilities. So that is how you harvest and look for. How would you display or prove soft skills that are in demand? Soft skills. So I have this entire section in my own catch-all, this thing that I did for myself that says, who am I? And I'm a firm believer if you can put a thing in your own resume, in your own description of who am I, like there's the skills that I have, and then there's the human being that I am. And so if you hire me, then I'm adept at simplifying and communicating complex ideas to broad audiences. For instance, interest and ability to research new and emerging technologies to better solve. And this said something like computer security problems, and I just changed it to marketing problems. Self-started with proven ability to develop creative solutions that enable communities. Once again, when I find something that's very similar, I will then adapt it, tweak it, and revise it to be true about me. One last one, mainly sedentary in an office environment. When I found this one, I was like, yeah, that describes me, mainly sedentary in an office environment. And then one last one that I had found said, I have big ideas and big ambitions. I would never sit down and look at an empty sheet of paper and think to myself, I have big ideas and big ambitions, but I do. And so when I found this in a job description of what somebody was looking for, I was like, I like it. I have big ideas and big ambitions. And so that's a real quick crash course if you're interested. And if you're like, really? If you want to, you can go check out the recordings of the recent live sessions, so you can see a LinkedIn profile review that I did. If you want to see an entire job hunt from start to finish, where we go through all 5 steps of the job hunt process, the recordings are there too. And so hopefully I was sharing my screen. Good, I was. And hopefully this was helpful in some way to you. And with that, we're done for the day. Thank you so much for joining us on this Black Hills Information Security webcast. If this is your first time, we hope you come back. And if you ever need a pen test, red team, threat hunt, any of those things, you know where to find us. Okay, all right. That's it. I'm going to end the webinar for all. Okay, see y'all. Bye.